Okay, here's my Wi-Fi proposal. So I want to change the way we do Wi-Fi because I'm sick of only having access to the internet in like 25% of the house and not being able to use the Wi-Fi in the study room or in the exec room. So the way our network is currently laid out is we've got our modem downstairs in the basement, and we've got a link from our modem to our two switches. They're actually both on the third floor, one by the deck and then one in the ghost wing. And then from the switches, we have Ethernet cables running to the rooms, and about every other room has its own Wi-Fi router in it. And a router creates its own network. So the devices that connect to those networks are completely isolated from each other. So that has some benefits and some drawbacks, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. But in general, I don't think this model is very good. And I'm proposing a system that is similar to the way UW does Wi-Fi, where instead of having a bunch of different networks with a bunch of different routers, we're going to have one house router and a bunch of wireless access points, which the house would buy. And these are different from routers because they're just access points. They provide access, wireless access to our one network. And this way, our router is assigning IP addresses to each device that connects, and we're all on the same network with the same SSID and the same password, which will allow our devices to roam the network, walk around the house, and stay connected. And it'll also mean that since we're managing the house's wireless, we can manage wireless interference more easily. And, of course, have better connectivity all around the house. So, some pros and cons for you. The current system, one of the nice things about it is that if someone's password gets out, someone shares their Wi-Fi password, they're only sharing their network's password. It won't affect the rest of the house. Another benefit is that the house currently doesn't have to pay for wireless networks. Members do it themselves. It sucks for us. It's better for the house's finances. But long term, it's better to have the house pay for it. Drawbacks is that unless you go around trying to get everyone's Wi-Fi passwords, you're really only going to get like 25% of the house access in like 25% of the house. The study room Wi-Fi does not work well because there's too many people trying to connect to it, and there's wireless interference going on, and it just doesn't work. The current system is difficult to track devices and identify them because they're all behind their own networks, which means that you can identify that a person is torrenting from a network, but you can't tell which device is doing it. So you can just say that something's happening in a specific network, but you can't track down the individual device. So at the proposed system, you can roam. There'll be accountability because we can identify each device on the network. It's easier to troubleshoot Wi-Fi problems with a single network as opposed to problems with a bunch of different networks. And it's easier to scale this proposed system. We just have to keep buying nodes, wireless nodes, and add it to our networks, to our network to expand our range and improve our quality of service. Since they're all managed by the house, it'd be easier to keep track of wireless interference by setting the correct channel settings. And this proposed system is future-proof. The access points that I'm proposing we get will be the standard for at least 5 to 8 years more. Downside is the house will have to pay money for it, and the future tech chair will need to know about some of this technology in order to maintain and improve the system. But it's easily transferable, and really the tech chair should know about these concepts anyways in order to be able to really maintain the system, or else they're kind of useless. Okay, so I'm proposing 3 different phases of implementing this. and I think we should do it this way so we have minimal internet interruption, because I want to do this during the quarter. Phase 1 will take down the internet for a little while, but it'll be planned in advance over the weekend or something, so it won't be bad. And phase 2 and 3 will be implemented in parallel to the current Wi-Fi architecture, each phase being approximately half the house. And since we're doing it in parallel, people will still have their routers while we do this and test it. There will be no internet interruption. So I'm hoping to complete phase 1 by halfway of winter quarter if I can get the budget approved quickly. And phase 1 is very important because it'll migrate our routing functionality from our modem to an actual dedicated router. Right now our modem is doing modem things, and it's also doing routing things. It should only do modem things, and we should get a router that does router things. And that's necessary because once we switch over to having a bunch of devices on the network as opposed to only 10, 15, and the reason we currently only have 10 to 15 devices on the network is because the only devices that are on it are routers. And those routers are handling their own devices on their own networks. They're totally separate. But with this proposed system, we will have way more devices on the network and way more IP addresses to assign, hence the need for a dedicated router. So technical details aren't that important, but everything will work like it did before after doing this. But doing this will make it very easy to implement phases 2 and 3 and extend and add to them in the future. So phase 2 I'm hoping to complete by the end of winter quarter, and this is kind of the testing phase of the new wireless structure. And I want to start with the non-ghost wing, so primarily the study room and the red room. I know that putting a network in the study room will reach all the way down to the chapter room, the exec room obviously, and the deck. So putting one in the red room and another one in the study room should be a pretty good way to balance traffic. And each access point, I'm looking at a pretty nice model. They're about $150 each, but we can get cheaper models if we're strapped on cash. And in this phase 2, it's really hard to know how many we're going to need, but I'm thinking we can get 2, try it out, and in phase 3, we'll know how many more we need to complete adding Wi-Fi to the rest of the house. So in this third phase, I want to have done by halfway point of the spring quarter. So we'll have time in the last part of spring to evaluate the network and optimize it for the future. And this will be the rest of the house, aka the ghost wing and whatever we might have left out in phase 2 in the non-ghost wing. And how many access points we'll need and what kind will be determined based on the results of phase 2. We might decide that we can afford to go with lower end devices because the other ones were too powerful, or maybe we need to just get more of them. I don't know. The only way we'll be able to know until we actually go out and buy some, because there's so many different variables and there's no way to know how many we need. So how much is it going to cost? The router is going to be about $100. We're going to need a switch to put between the router and the house switches, the big ones on the third floor that we have already. It's going to be about $20. And those are both phase 1. So phase 1 is fairly inexpensive. And then phase 2 and 3 is where we buy and set up wireless access points. And the 2 models I'm looking at are from this company called Ubiquiti, and they're running the 802.11 AC standard as opposed to the current 802.11n standard. And AC is the new standard for the future. It supports the 5 gigahertz and the 2.4 gigahertz bands, and it's substantially faster, and it will be the standard for many more years to come. So, and it's also backwards compatible with N. So there's really no reason why we wouldn't go down this route of AC. Even though it's a little bit more expensive, it'll save us money in the future because we won't need to reinvent our network. And there's two models, the Lite and the Pro. I read online that the Pro has significant performance benefits. So if we can afford it, we should definitely go with it. If not, we can try the Lite and see if it works. But the bottom line, I'm estimating that this project will cost end to end around $700, give or take $300. And how much I'm asking for today, I mean, this is a multi-phase project. We don't need all this money up front. If we want to do it, if I can get $450 now, I can order the parts for phase 1 and phase 2, and I can start implementing them now. And that requires planning, so everyone knows when I'm going to do phase 1, because I'm going to take down the network for a little bit. So planning to let everyone know when that will be, and planning on my end to make sure I know exactly what I need to do when that happens, so there's no setbacks. And after using those $450 for phase 1 and 2, we can meet again and decide if we want to continue with phase 3, evaluate the network, see how it's going, and see how much more we want to spend on it, or how much we should to complete it. And like I said earlier, we can't know exactly what kind of our needs our network has until we implement phase 2. So phase 3 could really be anywhere from like $200 to $600 more, and maybe even more than that. These are just estimates. Phase 1 only changes our network behind the scenes, so there will be no difference, no effects on our users, our house users, or our Wi-Fi. But 2 and 3 could affect the other networks. But that's very easy to manage, and I can fix that on the fly just because of wireless interference. The more networks that you put next to each other, the more they're going to interfere with each other. And yeah, that's it. All right, thank you. Bye.